evidence tags marking the holes from bullets fired at the car, one after another by Cleveland police officers last November, when Timothy Russell and Melissa Williams were killed after a chase that started in Cleveland.
Just took my baby's life, 137 bullets, and all them cops. I can't bring her back. They can't bring her back. So I want some justice, and I want them brought up on charge of murder. Flat out. That's all I got to say.
On Tuesday, Melissa Williams' mother filled with grief and anger all over again after the Ohio Attorney General released the findings of his investigation, Mike DeWine calling it a tragedy that shouldn't have happened.
It's been hard. It's been really hard because I sat there and listened to all these cops made up all these lies. I don't understand that.
Shots was coming from everywhere. They had to actually surround the car. I mean, it was gunshots coming from the back, side, front. I mean, everywhere. It was coming from everywhere.
Melissa's uncle says they were expecting a lot more from the Attorney General. DeWine said his job was to investigate what happened and to pass it along to the county prosecutor without making any recommendations. But that doesn't make a lot of sense to family members who are desperate for something more, some kind of action.
And what the family deserves, what the public deserves, what this community deserves is the truth. And that, I think, is what, to the best of our ability, we have given them with this report.
The family did get confirmation that no weapon was found on Williams or Russell, who were fired on 137 times by 13 officers. Melissa's family wants more.
I really think that these police officers, all 13 cops, should be brought up on murder charges.
I don't care what they business they got or their families. I don't care nothing about them. I don't. They didn't care nothing about my daughter. I don't care nothing about theirs.
In Cleveland, Mark Zinni, Fox 8 News.
I'm A.J. Thompson, and this is the Ultimate Advocate Talk Show, and you are the Ultimate Advocate. I have with me here tonight, on my right is...
Oh, you want me to say, I'm sorry, Pastor Cheryl.
And on my left,
James Johnson.
and we're going to be talking about the police chase. And we're going to be talking about responsibility and some fault. Starting off, I want to let you know right off, neither one of us are attorneys, and we don't practice law, and we don't give legal advice. But we do have a lot of things to discuss. Things that we can share, things that you need to know. Things that you ought to already know. And we want to talk about the chase. Pastor Cheryl, what do you got to say about the chase?
Well, first of all, like I shared with you earlier, it's always a bad idea to run from the police because you never know what you're going to put yourself in for in doing that. But overall, it was just a horrible situation. I don't understand how or why people need to be shot at so many times and they're not returning any fire. You know, so that's just don't make any sense to me. And why 13 people have to shoot at one or two unarmed suspects in a car that wasn't trying to get out or run or do anything. So it's just a horrible situation.
Brother Johnson?
Well, I look at the fact that even if the cops thought they was fired upon and they chased the car and the car ran into another police car, I'm not hearing anything about procedure would dictate come out with your hands up. I'm not hearing any of that was said or given a chance to come out the car with your hands up. All I'm hearing is 137 shots. So it depends on what is the police procedures. And at that point, when the cops went outside of police procedures, they was acting as vigilantes with they didn't have the law behind them at that point. They was just acting on their own as individuals. And I think that's what needs to be looked at also. When cops step outside of their procedures, the law, that they should be treated as individuals, not as lawmen.
Well, basically, they've already decided that these people were outside the law because they broke procedure already. According to the Attorney General and the Mayor's office, I believe they said there's only 3 cars maximum supposed to participate in a chase. And how many was it?
Well, actually, he said it's supposed to be 2, and he thought it was 3.
Okay. But how many was it?
13?
It was 13 cars.
Well, no, more. It was 52.
They dropped out.
Okay,
Yeah,
so we
it was
got
actually
52 cars. Okay, that's excessive in every kind of way that you can think of. And so we keep talking about things and talking about what somebody needs to do. And we keep talking about you are the ultimate advocate. Nobody, the Attorney General Mike Wine, he did, I believe, the best investigation that he could do, because he basically wrapped this thing up. And it's up to the family now. It's up to people who were standing by, who saw things and didn't say nothing, who heard things and won't say nothing. The people who won't get involved, it's time for you to get involved. People who are talking about arrests need to be made, don't look for one to be made until you go and file a criminal report, until you go and report a crime. Because, in my opinion, and my understanding of the law, is once these men break protocol, then they no longer have the protection of the law behind them. So they're acting on their own. However, they was in a uniform, so the city of Cleveland more than likely is responsible for their action along with their own individual selves. So what do you think? What do you think?
I don't see, most of the time, I know the union is going to stick up for the cops regardless, because there's a union. But I haven't, I see the family is waiting on a verdict from the Cleveland municipality or whatever.
The prosecutor's office you're talking about?
Yeah, sometimes they're waiting on something else to happen. I haven't heard nothing from their side as far as them getting a lawyer or even a lawyer contacting them to even take their case. I haven't seen anything like that. It's just all one-sided. Whereas when the Trayvon Martin case, they had a lawyer for there. They wasn't waiting on to see what happens. They got a lawyer. So I'm trying to understand why come there's no lawyer giving them their rights or something, saying something. They just looking for justice to get served, and I just don't see it happening that way.
Well, were you about to say? Well, one thing is what in the Trayvon Martin case, that was one security officer, not the entire police force. And he wasn't a police officer, he was a security officer. That made a big difference. Lawyers don't like to go after police officers, you know, because they have to deal with them. And they don't want to cross them. And so it's got to be a very good case that they can win against one officer, you know, not 17, not 13, not 52, not 59, you know, not one officer in the police department, and not one officer in the state of Ohio. So that made a difference. We still stuck in the state of mind of waiting for somebody else to do something for us. And you have to be the one to initiate that action. We talk about waiting for somebody to have, you know, how many officers it was again?
13?
No, they were saying that from downtown to East Cleveland, 52 officers were involved.
Okay.
Not, you know, necessarily it was just all 52 cars on the road at the same time chasing them. But it was 52 different cars that got involved. Either 10 was following them, then they said, told them which direction they went in, and then another 20 came in, and them 10 dropped off. But, however, that's why I think they put it in them words, that it was 52 cars involved in the chase.
Well, I would look at it like this. There's 52 people involved. And just one of those people's family, let's take the Williams family since they're speaking out. I've seen at least a mother and an uncle. That's 2. I've seen at least 50 people on a video at a candlelight visual. Okay? So that's 52. Okay? If you got sisters and brothers and aunts and uncles and grandparents, that affect each and every one of them for wrongful death. So there's 2 things that I would do. I would go and file police report a crime. I'd go and file charges 52 times, and however many people that it affects. I would then also initiate civil action against these individuals for however many times and however many family members I have that it affects. And I would use the evidence from the report in order to make my case in both cases. In both cases, it's already been proven that these people are accountable for overstepping their bound, for overzealous prosecution. I mean, this was complete execution. And the most we do as a people is sit around saying we waiting for somebody to do this. And I don't mean to burden somebody or talk about somebody or put somebody down who's grieving, but it's up to you. You are your own ultimate advocate. It's up to the fellow family members. It's up to people who love these people.
I got a question. You mentioned other family members filing wrongful death on this particular case, but I watched the news like everybody else, and they had lawyers, and all I ever hear about is just the family filing charges. I don't hear the lawyer saying, well, let's get the rest of the family involved. I don't hear that.
Well, because the family and we as a people, we don't look into the law, and nobody's standing around telling us that if something affects you or hurt you or somebody hurt you, and then you have a right to take action against them. And if it affects you personally, if it affects you not personally, if it makes you just have a headache, I mean, to my understanding of the law, that's my opinion. But I encourage you to look up the law for yourself and see. It's in Ohio rules, Ohio civil court proceedings. No, it's in the United States laws. It's in Cuyahoga County local rules. I mean, I read and I understand, but I cannot pass that understanding on to you. I can only pass it to you as my opinion. And that I do suggest that you not depend on some lawyer that you read for yourself, that you research for yourself and that you get involved for yourself. I do encourage you that if you don't work and you don't pay taxes, you're not a productive citizen, that you become that. So, because that's your say-so.
So, right now, the Attorney General, he basically did the investigation to say nay or yay on whether it was criminal. So he came back with a yay. Yeah, it was definitely criminal. And they got the paperwork to prove it. So now this goes to the prosecutor's office. The prosecutor is going to determine how to proceed in prosecution. Is this what the family is waiting for? They waiting to see what the prosecution is going to do? You know, that's what I'm saying. Well, that's not what I'm saying. But that's what I believe that they think. They think that now that it has been found criminal, that it's up to the prosecutor's office to now state the offenses and all of that and determine which way to go to prosecute these men. They don't understand that what you were saying is for them to do that. They thinking that the prosecutor's office is supposed to do that.
Yeah, because that's what people have been conditioned to think. And another reason, because we lazy as a people. So we don't try to get up and find out what we need to do. We depend on somebody else to do it. But in all actuality, if this prosecutor had an intent to do something, he would have already done that. Because that's what we elect him for, to look after our best interests. And I don't believe that he will. I'm sure that if you go down there and take some action, I'm sure that if you file a criminal police report against these officers, I'm sure that he will. I'm sure that if you file a civil suit against them, I'm sure that he will. I'm sure that if it was civil action against these police department, and I really hate to say that because we need our police on the force, but we don't need bad police on the force. We don't need police that don't look after us on the force. We don't need police to do overkill on the force. But we need us as citizens to do our part too. You know, to not break the law, to not be and look suspicious and do suspecting things.
Well, don't put yourself in the position to be, in a bad state.
Right.
You know, like, I know, especially black men in particular have had run-in with the police and whatnot, but, if the police will tell you to pull over, or light you up, as they say, to pull over. It's to your best interest to pull over. If you go to running, then you just open up, and I know that's one of, to me, in my opinion, not as a lawyer, but that's one of the things that they're going to lean on. They're going to lean on, number one, why did they run? Then, because now that you're running, I thought I heard you shooting at me. Now you're running. So they're going to put all of this together to make a picture as to why they were doing their job.
Make an example out of you.
As a police officer. But one other thing I wanted to ask, and I'm not asking you again as a lawyer, but I'm asking his opinion. When you were saying you don't think the prosecutor will file any charges, forgive me if I sound naive or ignorant or whatever, but once the Attorney General has found that there has been criminal activity, don't he have to do that?
Well, if he needed to
he may do a sorry job of it, but he still got to file something, don't he?
Well, the Attorney General is his supervisor. So if he wanted to make sure he filed something, the Attorney General could have ordered him to file it. He could have ordered him to press charges. But he didn't do that.
Is the Attorney General, I'm just, like I say, I'm just trying to get the understanding from what I understand. But isn't there a process like, you know, like they be talking about the process in which due process of the legal system? And isn't that part of the process that the Attorney General first, in this case, would determine whether or not there's anything even there to prosecute? And then once he determined that there is, then he gives it over to the prosecution, for the prosecution to do what they're supposed to do?
Well, he determined that it was foul play, but to my understanding, he didn't give a recommendation one way or the other. And he didn't give an order one way or the other.
Is that his job, though, to do that?
That's his job.
Because on the video, they were saying that that wasn't part of his job in doing the investigation. His job for the investigation was to find out whether or not it was criminal.
Well, you can look at the Ohio State website and look up the job description of the Attorney General. You can look at the Cuyahoga County website and look up the job description of the Attorney General. And you can also look at those same websites and see what your responsibility is as a citizen.
Say the websites again so they can write them down.
It's the state of Ohio. I think it's ohio.gov.
Ohio.gov.
And you can click on the Attorney General's website. You can even file your criminal report from his website. They got it set up so you can file your report there. They'll email you a case number. I've made reports there on things myself, and they're quickly getting back to you on it. And if you don't get results there, you can also go to the federal government Attorney General. But I do believe that if you speak and put what you got to say in writing, that we have a good Attorney General, and I think he'll act on it. But I believe that in these positions that these men serve, they can only do so much because they have to have the backing
of the people.
Because you'll send a man into a can of worms with no backing and he'll get ate alive. And then you'll get somebody in office that won't even come and investigate a situation like this as he did. And so you have to begin to take some action, legal action, mind you. Put your guns away. The law and the knowledge of the law, that's your new weapon of choice.
Pick up some paper.
It's time for you to use it. And your lawyer, you know, he working for himself. You might hire him, but all you're doing is making him money. So, but if you want to take care of your family, if you want these kind of things to stop, then you have to take action. They continue because you've never taken action. We, as a people, never taken action. We sit and wait for somebody to give us whatever we can get. We walk away with our hand down.
Well, they do candlelight vigils. Somebody will come to town and...
Candlelight vigil was very good back in the day and back in the 60s. But today, it's not that day, in my opinion. And I'm very thankful to Dr. King and Malcolm X for what they put in play. But if we don't use the paper and the pen today, if we don't file in the right place today, if we don't stand up today, then all they have done would have been a waste. Anybody else?
No, I'm kind of, that's my view on it. Like I said when I started, it's a terrible situation.
Okay.
And as Pastor AJ said, there's always going to be another terrible situation. And I want to say, too, to me, I feel amiss of not saying this, because we do have a right to the law, and the law is for us. And the first law is the law of God. And if we would change our way of living and our standard of living, you know, we would have less criminal run-ins with these situations. because we wouldn't have ourselves in the situation to start with. So we have to, as he said, take responsibility for what we do, how we act, you know, and what we allow to come in our lives. Because a lot of it is self-inflicted pain, and we could start there, nowhere else. Just saying that you're not going to continue to put yourself in a situation. You know, if you go to a bar or something, and you know they shooting up there all the time, well, quit going.
Yeah.
You know, that's going to cause you a problem after a while. Even though you may not be the one shooting. You know, it might be a shooting up there and they arrest everybody in there, and then you know you ain't paid all them parking tickets. So now they going to hold you on all them tickets, and it just goes, and it starts snowballing. Once you get in that system, it just snowballs. You know, but for this case, it's already before us. Yeah. There is something that can be done, and not by the Attorney General, by himself, and the prosecutor's office by themselves.
Well, I do think action does need to be taken, because when you start hitting a wallet, people start paying attention.
That's true.
In most of the other cases, the prosecutor, I heard other cases where multiple shooting into a person that was reaching for a wallet, and they called it justified, and this person got killed for no reason, no gun or nothing, just, and all these different cases. And I think the city has a budget for the year for wrongful death or whatever. They look at it like insurance. We got all these officers, there's going to be so much, we allocate this amount of money to handle for the year. So to them, it's just doing business to spend this kind of money on this because it's going to happen. But when people start learning the law and understanding how just more than one person is being affected, that the lawsuits that can come out of that, and once the city goes over its budget, they're going to start talking to these officers. They're like, y'all need to cut it out because we ain't got no more money to pay. The city actually can go broke over wrongful death to the point that officers, they're going to tell them, you better have a good reason to pull that gun out of your holster because we ain't got the money to pay no more. Until we get to that point where the people start sticking up for their rights, I just don't see nothing changing. It's going to go on as usual. It's just doing business.
And I agreed with that. And again, in getting knowledge and understanding the law and things like that, I don't want to be amiss, like you said, because we need our police officers at this place where we are in living in life. We need police officers. If I wouldn't want to be a police officer, if you gonna jump on me and tell me when I should pull my gun, you ain't out there. So I don't want you trying to dictate that to me. You know, I'm putting my life on the line every day. I'm walking up into places, they ain't got no lights, electricity. I don't know what's in there, what's going on in there. So no, I don't want that. And I don't think that that's just on their part. But I am saying when it's excessive and when you mess up like this, you should answer for it. Because that's just an out and out mess up. You know, and you were saying with the people reaching for a wallet or something and getting shot up. Well, the first thing you need to understand, when you're understanding the law, when the police officer say, halt, put your hands up. Don't go reaching for stuff. Like, again, he don't know what you're reaching for. And that's why they usually find them to be a legitimate shooting. Because if I'm got on the radio squad car that, you know, I'm going after somebody who just shot somebody, and I come in and say, you know, put your hands up, and then you go reaching, I mean, your chances are that you're going to get shot. So you have to understand all of the dynamics.
Right, the whole picture.
Right, of how all of that works, so that you won't find yourself at the mercy of these situations. But like I said, but in this situation, something went terribly wrong, and it needs some accountability for it. But something went terribly wrong.
Right. And another thing, you know, these officers that was found that you believe to be in the wrong, I believe they have driver's license and insurance, which you can file a claim, I believe, against their insurance for the damages to you. I believe you can file a claim against their homeowner's insurance for damages to you. I know my insurance does that, so I'm sure that theirs do too. And there's so many things that you need to find out. If we start making people accountable as they would you, and then it'll be less of this going on. If we start watching out for our community, and because it's our job to watch out for the police officers too, start keeping things safe and communicating instead of walking around mad with one another. There's no room for this friction between the police and the community. But these people like this who went overkill, there have to be some consequences. Okay? Because consequences bring about accountability. And accountability makes people change the way they act and what they do.
Amen to that.
So accountability ain't just one side. It's a citizen and not with the police. It's both ways. You remember they used to have on police cars, protect and serve. They've taken that off. And so we need to put that back on. And so we need to get these things fixed. You need to get them fixed because you're the ultimate advocate for yourself. You're the ones who speak up for yourself. If you don't speak up, if you don't stand up, if you don't write it down, if you don't file it, don't really look for nobody else to do it. Because even if they do, they're doing it for themselves, not for you. Anything else?
Nope.
I believe that wrap it up for tonight. This has been the Ultimate Advocate Talk Show, and you are the Ultimate